If I asked you where your money went last month, you'd probably give me a confident answer. And it would almost certainly be wrong. Not because you're careless, but because a growing share of modern spending doesn't register as a decision. It happens automatically, repeatedly, and without review. And over time, it becomes the single biggest reason people struggle to save, invest, and build financial resilience, even at high incomes. The issue isn't that money is being spent. It's how it's being spent, and more importantly, how it's leaving without being reviewed. Most people believe they manage money by controlling large, visible decisions. Housing, vehicles, major purchases, and occasional splurges. Those decisions matter, but they are no longer where most financial leakage occurs. Over the past 2 decades, the structure of household spending has changed. A growing share of expenses no longer requires an active decision. Instead, money exits accounts automatically through subscriptions, embedded fees, renewals, and convenience pricing that never shows up as a moment of choice. Once these costs are set up, they persist by default. From a business or investing perspective, this is a serious structural problem. I'm Stan, and I'm ready to teach you a lot about managing your finances and investments. Kindly subscribe for more insights like this, and let us know where you're listening from. In any organization, unreviewed recurring costs are treated as operational risk. They reduce margins, distort cash flow, and weaken long-term performance. Businesses routinely audit these costs because small inefficiencies, when sustained, materially affect outcomes. Households rarely do the same. This creates a situation where individuals may feel financially disciplined, avoiding major mistakes, living within their means, while still experiencing stagnation. Savings grow slowly or not at all. Investing feels harder than it should. Financial resilience never fully forms. The reason is simple. Capital is being drained before it ever has the chance to accumulate. These drains are what we call invisible costs. Invisible costs are recurring expenses that operate below the threshold of attention. They are not hidden in the sense that they are fraudulent or secret. They are invisible because they are normalized, automated, and rarely questioned once established. From a cash flow perspective, they behave like a permanent tax on income. Individually, most invisible costs appear trivial. Collectively, they are decisive. Consider how these costs typically enter a household's financial system. Most begin with a rational decision. Signing up for a service, choosing convenience, accepting a bundled fee, or agreeing to a renewal. At the time, the cost seems small relative to income. The benefit seems immediate. The downside feels negligible. What rarely happens is a structured follow-up. The charge renews. The fee persists. The price increases gradually. The service goes unused or partially used. But because nothing breaks, nothing gets fixed. This is the critical distinction. Invisible costs do not create financial emergencies. They create financial drag. They lower the amount of surplus cash available each month. That surplus is what funds emergency reserves, investment contributions, debt reduction, and optionality. When it is reduced consistently, progress slows, even if income is strong. One of the most common sources of invisible costs is the subscription stack. Most households carry far more subscriptions than they realize. Streaming platforms, software tools, storage services, fitness memberships, news subscriptions, and app-based services accumulate gradually. Many are used infrequently or not at all. Some were free trials that quietly converted into paid plans. Others were useful once, but no longer serve a meaningful role. From a financial standpoint, the problem is not whether any single subscription is worth it. The problem is that subscriptions represent permanent operating expenses. They behave like fixed costs in a business. Once established, they reduce free cash flow every month. And unlike discretionary spending, they do not invite regular evaluation. Compounding makes this worse. A £15 subscription does not cost £15. It costs £180 per year. Over 10 years, £1,800. Invested instead, that same cash flow could produce a materially different outcome. Multiply that by 10 subscriptions, and the numbers become impossible to ignore. Another major category of invisible costs comes from embedded fees on essential services. Telecommunications, utilities, insurance, and financial services frequently include charges that are framed as unavoidable. Administrative fees, recovery fees, equipment rentals, service surcharges, and legacy pricing structures. Many people assume these charges are fixed or regulated. Often they are not. Long-term customers frequently pay more than new customers for the same service, a phenomenon sometimes referred to as the loyalty penalty. Because the service just works, prices go unchallenged. Over time, households drift onto higher cost tiers without ever making an active decision to do so. From a business perspective, this is price discrimination. From a household perspective, it is silent overpayment. Convenience pricing is another source of consistent leakage. Food delivery, ride-hailing, expedited shipping, and service add-ons rarely appear as large expenses individually. But they introduce multiple layers of markup. Service fees, delivery fees, priority charges, and inflated base prices. The underlying product often costs significantly less than the delivered version. The difference is paid in exchange for time and convenience. Used occasionally, this is a rational trade-off. Used habitually, it becomes a structural cost that scales with income and busyness. The more demanding a person's schedule becomes, the more these costs expand. This creates a feedback loop. Higher income leads to higher time pressure, which leads to greater reliance on convenience, which increases fixed monthly outflows. Once again, the issue is not moral or behavioral. It is structural. Invisible costs also appear in financial product design. Bank accounts with maintenance fees, credit cards with annual fees that provide little value, investment platforms with layered charges, and insurance policies with unnecessary riders all reduce net returns. These costs are particularly damaging because they directly affect capital growth. A percentage-based fee does not just reduce current value. It reduces future compounding. Over long time horizons, the effect is substantial. What makes these costs invisible is that they are often expressed in ways that minimize perceived impact. Percentages instead of currency, annual fees instead of monthly, or bundled charges that are difficult to isolate. Another overlooked category is digital clutter. Over time, households accumulate digital services they no longer remember signing up for. These include dormant subscriptions, old cloud storage plans, legacy app services, and platform memberships tied to past projects or interests. Because each charge is small and familiar, it rarely triggers review. But together, they form a background drain that persists indefinitely. Finally, there is what can be described as the chaos cost. Late fees, overdraft charges, rush replacements, duplicate purchases, and penalty pricing caused by disorganization or lack of systemization are rarely tracked as a category. They appear random, but they are not. They are the predictable result of fragmented financial systems. From an operational standpoint, chaos costs are inefficiency costs. Businesses invest heavily to eliminate them because they reduce profitability. Individuals tend to absorb them without analysis. The cumulative effect of all these invisible costs is not immediate hardship. It is lost momentum. Savings accumulate slowly. Investment contributions feel strained. Financial buffers remain thin. And despite earning more over time, the sense of progress never quite materializes. This is why many people feel financially stuck despite doing the right things. They budget. They avoid obvious excess. They work hard. They plan. But the underlying system continues to leak. The solution is not aggressive frugality. It is systematic visibility. The first step is conducting a full financial audit, not of discretionary spending, but of recurring charges. This means reviewing the last 30 to 60 days of bank and credit card statements and identifying every cost that repeats. Not just obvious subscriptions, but fees, renewals, service charges, memberships, maintenance costs. Each recurring charge should be annualized. Monthly figures hide impact. Annual figures reveal it. Once annualized, each cost should be evaluated using a simple question. Does this expense materially improve outcomes relative to its long-term cost? This reframes the decision away from convenience and toward capital efficiency. The next step is consolidation and elimination. Redundant services should be removed. Legacy pricing should be renegotiated. Financial products should be optimized. Fees that provide no clear benefit should be eliminated. Finally, systems should be put in place to prevent re-accumulation. This can include separating subscription payments into a dedicated account or card with limited funds, removing saved payment details from platforms, requiring manual review for new recurring charges, scheduling a quarterly audit date. These measures add friction back into spending, not to make life harder, but to restore intentionality. Invisible costs thrive on automation without oversight. They disappear when oversight becomes routine. The core takeaway is simple but powerful. Wealth is not just about earning more or investing better. It is about ensuring that capital is not silently drained before it ever has the chance to work. When invisible costs are reduced, cash flow improves immediately. Savings accelerate. Investing becomes easier. Financial resilience strengthens, without requiring extreme sacrifice. This is not about deprivation. It is about reclaiming control over the part of your finances that quietly determines whether progress compounds or stalls. Below is a clean, professional ending section that follows naturally from the body you approved and finishes with a clear, non-cringy call to action to subscribe. It keeps the investing/business tone and avoids hype. When people think about improving their financial situation, they usually look for dramatic changes. A higher income, a better investment strategy, a smarter portfolio allocation. Those things matter, but they only work if the foundation is solid. Invisible costs undermine that foundation. They don't cause immediate failure. They cause long-term underperformance. They reduce the amount of capital you can deploy. They delay compounding. They weaken financial resilience. And because they operate quietly, they are rarely addressed until years of progress have already been lost. A single afternoon spent auditing recurring charges can permanently improve cash flow. Redirecting that reclaimed cash into savings or investments can materially change long-term outcomes. This is not about cutting enjoyment or living cheaply. It's about restoring intentionality. Saving becomes easier. Investing becomes consistent. Financial pressure decreases. That is how financial control is actually built, not through dramatic moves, but through eliminating the quiet forces working against you. If this breakdown was useful and you want more content, then subscribe to the channel.